Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Momentarily, your good buddy Owen Siebring joining us on screen. Owen, of course, with Iowa News Now, Fox 28, CBS sports anchor. Owen, part of that fantastic Eye on the Hawks podcast with our buddy Mitch Fick and also Mike, their producers. So looking forward to talking to Owen for all three segments today. He's going to do the triple play for us. Hawkeye football, Hawkeye men's basketball, Hawkeye women's. So Hawkeye football, as we record this on Tuesday afternoon, late afternoon on October 21st, after the press availability in the morning with the players and then Kirk Ferentz in the afternoon. Owen, you were there live and in person. Let's talk about it. Fill us in, please, on what we missed today, please.
Yeah, something that I found interesting, I hadn't realized quite yet, was that the Hawkeyes have actually received the kickoff to start every single game this year. I hadn't really put that together. And this even goes back, I haven't looked how far back it goes, but I remember that Music City Bowl last year against Missouri, they received the opening kickoff, and Caden Weedham returned that for the touchdown. So if nothing else, I feel like this really speaks to maybe the team's confidence right now in what they have both on offense and maybe in the return game too. They know Caden Weedham is a weapon. On our podcast recently, I discussed, I think that he's maybe the MVP of the entire team this year, Caden Weedham, what he does for this team. Now he's getting involved in offense too. But it shows what this team feels about where they're at as a program in terms of their offense. With Mark Gronowski at quarterback, with the running back weapons they have, with the receivers starting to get healthy again, this team, I mean, it's going to be a real testament what they do now in these next couple of weeks, especially when Oregon comes to town.
You know, the intriguing thing, Owen, is it's not a night game. It's a 2:30 or 2:40 kickoff Central Time from Kinnick Stadium on national TV, CBS. Iowa is 10-1 in their last 11 games against the Gophers. Now, by that 10-1, that one being 2 years ago, the last time these two teams, here we go. The last time these two teams played at Kinnick Stadium was it a fair catch? It wasn't a fair catch. Cooper DeJean, us in Iowa say it wasn't a fair catch.
Sunday, I was up in the Twin Cities over the weekend, and on Sunday I actually went and covered the Vikings-Eagles game since the Eagles were going to be in town, and so I had a chance to go down to the locker room and chat with Cooper DeJean afterwards, and you can find that on our Iowa News Now YouTube page if you want a little plug, but I was just talking to him about how much he follows the Hawkeyes still, if he's watching every game, and he's like, yeah, and then he goes, wait a second, is this week the Minnesota game? And I said, yes, it is.
He can feel it in his bones.
Watch that. I bet you do. We talked to Caden Weedham today as well, and he said the same thing where I was like, all right, is this one where the special teams guy takes a little bit more care than maybe he would previously? He's like, yeah, I had a chance to learn from Cooper, and I think we'll be all systems cleared to go. So we didn't talk much about the rivalry itself, but maybe one little interesting wrinkle in the rivalry is the fact that John Nestor now plays for the Gophers, an Iowa transfer. And so TJ Hall, who's been a great defensive back this year for Iowa, spoke about that a little bit, where he's like, they still have a little bit of communication and they still are buddies. They still care about each other and everything. But boy, when it comes to Saturday, they don't want anything to do with each other anymore. And they're not rooting for each other's success all that much.
Got to talk running backs. I mentioned Mark Gronowski, and we could talk the whole segment, the whole show about the job that Gronowski's done playing hurt all year and how tough he is and how well he runs. But speaking of running well, Kamari Moulton, we got to give it to the guy. Yeah, the young guys are stepping in off and on the injury list. Xavier Williams, McNeil, if they can get Jazz Patterson back. But Kamari Moulton playing pretty much nicked up all year with that extra shoulder brace. Got to tip our cap to Kamari Moulton. Basically, he was a half yard short of 100, so 99.5 yards. And he actually had it, and then he got a loss. And then there was a penalty and something else. So he was under 100, but 17 carries. So, 5.5 yards a carry. You got to give it to the kid. He is playing some fantastic football, Owen.
Yeah, he's been great. And that whole position group this year has really impressed me a lot, because it seems like there's been at least one or two injuries to a running back every single week this season, but whoever's out, another guy steps in, whether it's Kamari Moulton, Nathan McNeil, Xavier Williams, TJ Washington, Jazz Patterson. It seems like Iowa's just comfortable with any of those 5-6 guys, Brevin Dahl, even if you want to count him in that group too, that these are all guys who can go out there and maybe could pile up 100 yards. The offensive line is up for the Joe Moore Award for the best O-line in the country, and maybe that's got a lot to do with it, certainly. But I think that Iowa maybe doesn't get talked about enough as being a program that it's not exactly RBU, But it is certainly a school that has a quality, serviceable running back every year. You know, these guys aren't going to be all pro NFL players one day, but even going back to the very beginning of the Kirk Ferentz era, you always feel comfortable with what they've got at running back. You know, they might not be all stars, all Americans, and they're not going to all be Caleb Johnson or somebody like that, but they're all going to be at least like solid, serviceable 700, 800-yard guys. And so you've got that in the room this year where you've got probably 6 different guys in that running back room who could be, close to 1,000-yard rushers.
And people are forgetting, if they've forgotten, Kamari Moulton was one of the guys with Caleb Johnson last year until after the first game. Remember, he sat out half the first game because of a suspension or a rule violation, Caleb Johnson did, and then went crazy the rest of the year in a great way for us Hawkeye fans. So, yeah, Caleb Johnson's not walking through that door soon, but Kamari Moulton has the chops. And as you mentioned, you get 3 or 4 guys with an 800-yard rusher, 300 yards here, 300 yards there. Yeah, you're still going to get to that 1,500-yard threshold at some point in time. As we know, Owen, yeah, we can talk about Tim Lester sometimes trying to chuck the ball all over the yard, but good defense, punting, place kicking, running. Kirk Ferentz, hello, here you are as you chuckle with me. But that's Hawkeye football. Any other concerns or talks from the players or coaches or Coach Ferentz today in reference? We've talked a lot of offense. How about on defense? Again, as you mentioned with Harrell, hopefully coming back, and Xavier Wongpa getting the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week. We've got some, and nice to see Caden Weegan incorporated in the offense with a touchdown run, besides his great return game and catching the ball. So it looks like Tim Lester is adding Weegan more and more to the offense. Let's talk a little defense, special teams, any other news, and also some Minnesota talk. Let's talk about the Gophers, what they bring to the table, please, Owen.
Yeah, in terms of defense, no real major injury news that comes to mind. If anything, I feel like the team grows more and more confident in their defense as the year goes along, especially when you look at this last week, the couple of interceptions from Xavier Wampa and Deshaun Lee. These are 2 guys who, frankly, have had their struggles in Iowa uniforms. They haven't been bad, but they also have had times where they maybe don't look great. Xavier Wampa doesn't, fill out the number of stars that fit his high school profile when he came to Iowa. And so I think that they grow more and more confident with these guys every day in terms of what they can bring to the table, and hopefully sending these guys on to the NFL one day. Deshaun Lee has looked certainly human at times. He's gotten beat on some deep balls this year. And so to see him get an interception, live up to his billing, that's nice for this defense too, because boy, there was some inexperience, especially in that linebacker group coming into the season, but they all have played magnificently. I mean, they're missing tackles has been a bit of a problem in certain games, but overall, the defense has been exactly what you want them to be. I've loved Graves, loved Llewellyn, loved the linebacker group. Harrell's been awesome. Zach Lutmer, he's such a rising star in this program. Everything about the defense so far is just what Hawkeye fans want.
Got to make your fellow workmate and Xavier grad Mitch Fick happy. We got to mention Ethan Herkett too on defense. But let's also talk about what Minnesota brings to the table defensively. Would they have 10 sacks last week against Nebraska? So that's going to be a concern, obviously, for Mark Gronowski, Tim Lester, and of course Kirk Ferentz in that Hawkeye offense. But pretty formidable defense. Owen, it is great to see you and great to talk to you. You're coming back for the next 2 segments. We'll talk Hawkeye men's basketball in segment 2 here upcoming, and then we'll close out with Hawkeye women's basketball. Thank you so much for the great football coverage. You ready to go for 2 more?
You bet it.
Can't wait. He is Owen Siebring. I am Dave O'Hara. Owen, of course, is with Iowa's News Now, CBS 2, Fox 28. Sports anchor there, but also that, again, check it out. Owen mentioned their YouTube page. Go to there and check out also their Eye on the Hawks podcast. Fantastic work that he and our buddy Mitch Fick are doing, and their producer Mike. Love the coverage they're giving us on the Hawkeyes through and through. So far, Owen Siebring, I'm Dave O'Hara. We'll be back with more Hawkeye in just a few moments.
Hawkeye is brought to you by Better Edge, your ultimate social betting marketplace. With no VIG, you're bound to win more on every bet on Better Edge. Founded by Hawkeye alum James Siles and proud Iowan Greg Kajewski, Better Edge delivers an unmatched betting experience. Plus, what's not to love when they're committed to supporting charities and children's hospitals near you? Join the action now. Sign up at betteredge.com/Hawkeye and get $10 to start winning more today. Better Edge, where your social betting means your bets go further and you win more.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Momentarily, you'll see our buddy Owen Siebring, who is kind enough to join us for the entire show today. Owen, give me your takeaways, if you would, please, on the talent, but also McCollum just getting settled in here at Iowa. Of course, we all know he's an Iowa native and wants to be at Iowa and pick this job. They picked him. Seemed like a nice match. Let's talk about that, please, Owen.
Yeah, Ben McCollum seems like a great guy. Just again, the perfect coach to fit the system right now. Somebody who is accessible and relatable. I know we didn't really have that in the previous administration with Fran McCaffrey there. Just not, I mean, it seems like he was a great players coach, but just was not, out there shaking hands with the fans and out in the community quite as much. And so I think that people have loved seeing that out of Ben McCollum, a guy who really is out there wanting to build the fan base. It seems like every single day so that they can get more Hawkeye fans in there for the men's games. They know they can pack that place for women's games, but let's start filling that men's place as well, I think. One thing that was my biggest takeaway from media day, because again, so many of these players are just relative unknowns for me. Yes, I've seen them maybe play at Drake or Kansas State, wherever the place may be, but just have not seen them on the court together. So don't know quite what to make of them entirely yet. But one thing I do know is that they're all really nice, likable, easygoing, laid back guys, which again is maybe something different that I didn't get on previous Hawkeye rosters. Obviously, the talent was there, but outside of Peyton Sanford, who is one of my all-time favorites, just not a lot of guys who really fans could engage with super well or who they really felt like they can know. This year's men's basketball team, the roster just really reminds me of the women's team, honestly, because those are young women who people have really attached themselves to, have gotten to really know through community efforts or through social media. And I think that people are going to have that with the men's team coming up. That they might not know a lot of these names super well yet if you're just a casual Hawkeye fan, but they are all good guys who are really going to be well known in just a couple of months.
It's intriguing again to what you just said, and I keep using the word intriguing with you today because all this stuff is intriguing. It's the unknown, right? I mean, you just said it. You see Brendan Housen lighting it up at K State, and he had another stop before he went to K State. So we know he can shoot. He's a big, rangy guard. Of course, everything starts and stops with Bennett Sturts, who was with Ben McCollum at Northwest Missouri State. I know a little bit about him from his high school days, some friends I still have in connections in Kansas City. He's from Liberty High School in North Kansas City, not in North Liberty, Iowa, but in North Kansas City and Liberty, Missouri. And then, of course, he had the great, Missouri Valley Player of the Year season last season at Drake. His first year in Division One. Now his senior year comes over with his head coach Ben McCollum. You mentioned it perfectly, Owen. That's why I mentioned the word intrigue, because we think we know what could happen, but we also, it's a little intrigue and what could happen here. So I like the fact that Cooper Koch is the only holdover from the previous regime, as you mentioned, or the previous administration with Fran McCaffrey. And yeah, I mean, Peyton Sanford, I agree with you. Peyton and Price both. Peyton for the last 4 years joined me on this show, all 4 years at Iowa, and Price the last 2 years, and now he's at Nebraska. So yeah, it's interesting. And I had an extended conversation with Sean Bach from 24/7 Sports, CBS Sports, and you've had Sean on your shows before too, talking about, okay, where does Cooper Koch go from here? Where does he fit in as the only holdover? And one thing we know is for certain that Cooper talked about, to your point about Ben McCollum being an energy guy and his guys being affable and nice and approachable. But these guys got a little hard-nosed edge to them, like Ben McCollum. If all it's been said to me, Owen, and I think you would agree with this, maybe you've gleaned this from your approach and your appearances around the team. If you don't play defense on this team, you're not going to play for Ben McCollum. Would you agree? As you nod your head, obviously yes, right?
Yeah. Oh, certainly. Yeah. I mean, that is still going to be the approach that's going to carry over from all of the Ben McCollum's teams in the past. And yeah, Sean Bach, I mean, he's so knowledgeable. We love talking to guys like that because they really know that, we all have all our hands in different areas where we've got to be covering high school and college and pro stuff. And, Sean's a guy who can really dive deep with the Hawkeye men. So he's a great analyst for that. But Bennett Sturts, I mean, yeah, it seems like everything is going to start and end with him. In the offseason, we did a one-on-one interview with Ben McCollum. And I asked, who's the player that everybody's going to be excited about? And he's like, you mean besides Bennett Sturts, right? I mean, it just went without saying Bennett Sturts. And even talking to Trey Thompson, one of the freshmen on this team, a 17-year-old who reclassified, I mean, a great young player. He was talking about just how tough practices are. And he said, yeah, we're going up against an NBA player in practice every day. And so it's just like automatically seems like it's known right now. This is a guy who's going to be playing in the league a year from now. And he's making everybody else better around him in practice.
I find it interesting that, I left Trey Thompson off, as you just mentioned his name, and we could keep going on. One other name I want to mention before we close out here with men's basketball, Fulgara brings the international experience, another Division I experience, and transferred in. With this transfer portal, as you mentioned, though, and again, I say it leaves a little intrigue because, we've seen him at other places at other levels, but now it's Big Ten. It's the big time. This is crunch time. A lot of I'll say pundits, national and Midwest and Big Ten, but now that the Big Ten spans the whole U.S., they're talking about Iowa being, an 8-9 seed in the Big Ten. So regular season. Interesting, I find that. Some want to go a little higher, some want to nudge them down a little bit. And then you mentioned Bennett Sturts, as Ben McCollum talked about, and even Trey Thompson talked about playing with a future NBA guy. He is preseason all Big Ten, first team all Big Ten. So a lot of expectation for this team, but I think that's pretty realistic. Middle of the road regular season. Now we can bump them up a notch or two or down below, but all 18 teams will make the Big Ten tournament this year for the first time in men's basketball history. So talk a little bit about that too. I find that interesting where people are seeding the Hawkeyes in the preseason.
Yeah, people seem to not quite know what to make of them. And I believe, Ben Sturts was named a preseason on the AP All-American team as well. And so a lot of people, even at the national level, are liking him. I've been listening to a lot more college basketball podcasts lately. I got asked to be a voter for the Associated Press this year with college men's basketball. And so I've been really trying to increase my intake on, what I'm learning about these teams across the country in the preseason. And when I hear all these analysts talk about the Big Ten, they really don't seem to know what to do with Iowa because there are so many guys who, played at, really played at a high level, but they played at a high mid-major level. So can that translate to the Big Ten? I heard one analyst say that he thinks that 11 teams from the Big Ten are going to make the NCAA tournament, and Iowa was not one of the 11 that he thought was going to make it in, which, I mean, that would surprise me at the end of the year. If 11 make it in and Iowa's one of the 7 that's sitting out of that would surprise me a bit because I do think that this team is capable of a lot more than that. But it seems like everybody at the national level isn't going to know what to do with this team until they take the court in early November. We just don't know how this team is going to mesh, what their energy is going to look like quite yet.
And the only reason I mentioned this, Owen, preseason, we can kind of stick a feather in our cap and go, yeah, whatever. But because Purdue, a Big Ten team, and Matt Painter are ranked, again, preseason #1 nationally, and I think there are 5 or 6 other Big Ten teams in the top 25. So there are some expectations here. So I would not be surprised. I mean, last couple of years, it's been 9 or 10, or 8, 9 or 10 teams in the Big Ten making the big dance. So it would not surprise me to see 11 this year, headed by Purdue at #1, which they've seemed to be around the last couple of years, before, during, and after the season. So congrats to Matt Painter and his crew, Boilermakers, in the Big Ten Purdue. So Owen, let's put a pin in it here for talking Hawkeye men's basketball. We'll come back, close out the show, talking Hawkeye women's basketball. Folks, there he is, Owen Siebring, kind enough to join us for the entire show today, talking Hawkeye football, men's basketball, and now women's basketball upcoming. Owen, of course, is the sports anchor with Fox 28, CBS 2, Iowa's News Now, part of that fantastic Eye on the Hawks podcast. Check out their YouTube page, where all their extras are there. Whatever doesn't make it on the air, they've got so much content, Hawkeye related especially. Owen, just fantastic work. Greatly appreciated. All right, 2 down, 1 to go. Can you hang with us? You ready to go?
You bet, I'll be here.
I love it, my friend. Thank you. He is Owen Siebring. I am Dave O'Hara. We'll be back to close out Hawkeye in just a few moments.
You don't have a lot of time to make decisions today if you want to be out front with the newest products. This is Joe Mershman from Mershman Seeds. Did you know that we're one of the first 2 companies to offer Enlist E3 soybeans in the United States? And because of that, you benefit from it. Here's Ben Pieper to tell you more.
With Enlist E3 soybeans, we have a front row seat to the highest yielding germplasm that's on the market. That allows us to focus on the things that matter to you, making sure you get what you ordered delivered on time to ensure the highest yielding soybeans for your farm.
Contact your local Mershman Seeds dealer today. They care and are ready to help you.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. Always pleased to have this guy join us. We've been blessed. He's going to join us for the whole show today, all 3 segments. Owen Siebring, sports anchor at Fox 28 and CBS 2, Iowa's News Now, part of that fantastic Eye on the Hawks podcast. So, Owen, Hawkeye women's basketball. Jan Jensen goes into year 2 after the great Lisa Bluter retired 25 years, of course, after the Caitlin Clark era. Tickets still being sold. They're sold out again. Hawk fans love this team, love the organization, Jan Jensen and crew, bringing in top recruits now nationally. To say that the Caitlin Clark effect isn't still in effect is crazy because, my goodness, Owen, the #6 player in the country, besides Addie Deal this year coming in as a freshman, they've got the 6th ranked player in the country coming in next year. I'm going to step aside and let you fill in some blanks for us, please.
Yeah, we've got McKenna Velitsko is coming in, another native of California, played at a private school out there, still playing. She's coming into her senior year coming up right now. Somebody who I don't know how much, we kind of asked her about the Addie Deal effect now, somebody from the West Coast who comes over and plays for this team, how much that had to do with it. And I think she maybe said, seeing Addie go there helped at least her to know, like, okay, there are good players that are going to come here after Caitlin Clark. And so as much as we talk about the Caitlin Clark effect, every successive good player that comes kind of lays another brick in that foundation of putting this team on the pedestal of one of the elite women's basketball programs in the country. Because yeah, you could have Caitlin Clark, but then what do you do after that? And so that's why you need the Lucy Olsons, the Addie Deals, the McKenna Velitzkos to come in and prove that this is still a team that can recruit with the best of them, which Jan Jensen certainly can. Obviously, not just one of the best coaches around, but one of the nicest people maybe I've ever met in my life. We just love Jan Jensen around here. And so I love that she's still bringing in recruits like this. McKenna told a story about her. McKenna was injured for a big chunk of last year. Jen Jensen flew out to a tournament in California just to talk to her and have a conversation with her. She's not even going to watch her play, but just to see her and continue to build that relationship. That's the kind of person Jen Jensen is, and what is going to keep big recruits coming into the University of Iowa. And whatever day this comes out, there's still maybe more news about other recruits who could be coming to Iowa in the near future. I know there's a recruit out of Kansas City, Addison Bjorn, who possibly could be joining her friend McKenna Velitzko at Iowa. So could be more to come. But all that just to say that this is, even to high schoolers right now, looking at one of the most enticing programs in America.
Well stated. And no, I'm glad you get timestamped. That's why I always say when we record this, because as we record this on Tuesday afternoon, October 21st, a lot can change between now and by the time this airs on Fridays and over the weekend and re-airs. And then before we post it online at Dave O'Hara Sports in perpetuity every Sunday afternoon. So I'm really glad you went there, because as we know, the sports world, no matter what the sport, is ever changing and very fluid. I agree with you. Jan Jensen, probably next to Lisa Bluter, because they've been on this show the last handful of years as well. I've had Lisa Bluter on from Carver Hawkeye Arena in the Big Ten Conference Room. She's been kind enough to make time for me in this show the last couple of years, and she retired. Jan Jensen, I'm going to have them on again later this year. You can mention Jenny Fitzgerald, who retired as well, but the three amigos, when they joined me on the show, it was always great. And now she's got a great coaching staff, joined her with, of course, Abby Stamp is still there, as well as Randy Peterson, a former Bluter's Bunch player, as well as Abby. So a lot of great connectivity, Owen, to your point, just the niceness of this program leaking out to the public how much they enjoy this team. What I find fascinating as well, Owen, as you mentioned, not just Addie Deal coming in as a freshman and the national imprint this program has, what they still have on board. Again, you were there last week with Kylie Fearback coming back for an extra senior season. You got Hannah Stolke for her senior season. You got some of the fantastic freshmen from last year with Ava Hayden. You've got Hayes coming in as a 6'5" post player as a freshman. You know, I'm throwing names out there with Stremlow and Tegan Mullaney, a lot of freshmen that played last year. This team goes pretty deep, but it's good. There's only one basketball, and I say this, what you just said, because Jan Jensen is such a nice person and a great coach. One basketball and all that talent. As the great Jerry Seinfeld would say to Jan Jensen, good luck with all that.
Yeah, that's right. And we talk about the youth of this team so much too, because I think that Jan Jensen mentioned that this is her youngest team since 2012, I think. Just so many freshmen and sophomores. You do have the upperclassmen leadership of the Kylie Fearbach and Hannah Stolke as well, but so many young players on this team. Taylor Stremlow was named one of 2 team captains this year as a sophomore. That really speaks a lot to who she is as a person and as a teammate. I don't know if she's going to develop quite into the player that Kate Martin was, but personality-wise, that's kind of who she reminds me of right now, that she could be that glue player, glue personality that kind of keeps things together on that team, both this year and for the future as well. Just the perfect kind of hybrid that you want out of upperclassmen and underclassmen to kind of, they shepherd the way for these young kids to continue things moving forward. And boy, I mean, this team will be really good this year. I think this is an easy call for a tournament team this season, but man, they are going to be so dangerous next year and 2 years from now too.
I knew when I'd start mentioning names, I'd leave somebody off. We got, Taylor McKay. I mean, I love hearing what they're talking. What they're talking about in her postseason in the summer. The assistants to Jan Jensen were saying, she's increased her game. She's not just a three-point artist anymore. I'm anxious to see what her upperclassmen, her leadership brings after playing since Caitlin Clark has left, how her game has expanded. So I think they're saying she's not just going to be the three-point queen anymore. Yeah, she'll still launch it. Don't get that twisted. But she's expanding her game. So I'm excited to see her kind of break out and have her complete game now be shown to the public.
Yeah, and I'm eager to see how much you have to imagine she's going to be a starter on day one. Don't know quite yet. We'll find out in a couple weeks when they start with their exhibition game against Ashland. But she's the type of player that seems like with her experience would be a starter on day one. You're going to see a lot of young players, though. Jan Jensen talked I think what she said was top 8 was the term that she used to refer to kind of her main rotation. And there's some discussion between myself and Jeff Linder from the Gazette about who those 8 players are going to be. There's a few that were like, wait, is that number 9? Well, will she be in the 8? We don't quite know right now, and we might not know until later. But certainly seems like at least 1 or 2 of those 8 might be freshmen and sophomores. Again, you mentioned Layla Hayes, a 6'5" true freshman out of Wasilla, Alaska. Somebody who's coming in, and man, I really love her size, love her game, and we got a chance to watch some practices during the summertime. Those balls were going a lot to Layla Hayes and Ava Hayden. Those two are going to be fierce come Big Ten play.
And when I mentioned about Jen Jensen, all that talent and only one basketball, what a pleasant problem to have. Let's be honest. That's juggling those personalities and integrating them into the system is going to be fantastic to watch over the years. Owen, I can't thank you enough for joining us for the whole show. As always, an informative yet entertaining and fun conversation. Always great to see you. I'll catch up with you in a couple weeks. Thank you so much, and great to see you, Owen. Thank you.
You bet. Happy to be here, Dave.
Truly my pleasure and happy to have you. So for Owen Siebring, again, sports anchor at Fox 28 and CBS 2, Iowa's News Now. Check out the podcast YouTube page, Eye on the Hawks. Great, fantastic work they do. He and Mitch Fick and Mike, their producer, do fantastic work covering the Hawkeyes. So for Owen Siebring, I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. Thanks also to my production partners at Better Edge and BetterEdge.com, Greg Kajewski and James Siles. That's all from us at Hawkeye. Thanks to all of you.